My name is Anne Piper. My married name is Anne Wright. I was born in August 1938 and I grew up in an inner city suburb of Birmingham called Ladywood. I lived at number 20 Sutton Street, which is off Holloway Head, not far from Chinatown. Part of the street still exists today, but all of the houses have now been demolished. My mum and dad were called Annie and Ernest Piper. I have one brother called John Piper, who is 2 years younger than me. I no longer live in Birmingham. I moved to Aldridge near Walsall around 1989 when I retired. Our house on Sutton Street was 3-storey. My bedroom was a big attic room on the top floor. My dad made it really special for me. He papered the walls with wallpaper covered in pink roses. The window looked out onto Sutton Street and I could see the house across the road where my husband-to-be and his family lived. My mum and dad and my brother had bedrooms on the first floor. None of the bedrooms had any heating, and in winter I remember ice forming on the inside of the windows. The house had no bathroom, but once a week on Friday night, Mum would heat water in 2 large saucepans and then fill a tin bath placed in front of a coal fire in the living room. My brother and I would use the same water to wash, but I always wanted to be first. Later in life, we would go for our weekly bath to Kent Street Bathhouse. I think it cost 6pence for children to bathe and 1 shilling for adults. Soap and towels were provided at extra cost. Our house had a tiny kitchen which held a small gas cooker and a sink with cold running water. My dad installed some wooden shelving to house the saucepans. There was no fridge. We stored our meat and milk on a shelf above the stairs leading down to the cellar. We called this the cellar head. My brother and I always felt well provided for. We had plenty to eat and nice clothes. I think it was because both Mum and Dad had jobs, and also we were only a small family. A lot of our friends came from much larger families and money was scarce. We didn't have a television when I was young, but I did listen to the radio with the rest of the family. I remember listening to the Archers and Mrs. Dale's Diary. I also enjoyed listening to popular music and loved to sing along. My brother and I would go out into the street to play, me with girls of my own age, while my brother played with his own friends. It was quite safe on the street, because there were hardly any cars in those days. The type of games we played were hopscotch and skipping. We also loved to walk in the nearby bombed building site with our dolls and play house. We used brick and old bits of wood to build a small shelter for ourselves and played amongst the bomb building site. We couldn't get many sweets when I was younger as they were rationed after the war. When they did come in stock at a nearby shop, word would quickly get out and me and my friends would all rush down there to try and buy some, but often the sweets would be sold out before we arrived. One thing we did have regularly were toffee apples made by local women in their own homes. We all knew who made them and we would go and knock on their front doors and ask to buy one. The small ones cost 2pence or 3pence, while the really big ones with the thick toffee on the bottom were 6pence. I liked those best. My dad gave my brother and I 1 shilling a week pocket money, and we used this to buy them. When sweets came off ration, my mum took me and my brother to a big sweet shop in nearby Crego Street, and I remember staring in the window at the huge array of sweets on display. I couldn't believe it. I only ever had one birthday party, and that was when I turned 15. My mum bought an ice cream cake which she stored on the cellar head before the party. By the time we came to eat it, the ice cream was melting, but we all enjoyed it nevertheless. I left school when I was 15 and then started work. We regularly held Christmas parties at our house, inviting family and close friends. Usually the adults went to the pub first, and the party only started when the pub closed. We'd have the radio switched on, and everyone would dance to the music and sing as well if we knew the words. Our family was very lucky because we could afford to go on holiday for a week most years. We generally went to Ilfracombe in Devon. We always went during the factory holidays, which took place in the last week in July and first week in August every year. We travelled to Devon by coach and stayed in a guest house where bed and all meals were provided. Our pet dog, Smudge, a black and white spaniel, came with us too. The family enjoyed relaxing on the beach, swimming in the sea, and going on day trips to see local attractions. At night we'd go to the pub. My brother and I sat outside, enjoying a glass of pop and a packet of crisps, while Mum and Dad were inside. I remember the journey by coach back to Birmingham was always a happy occasion, with everyone joining in to sing songs and be merry. I was unfortunate because I didn't know my dad's parents, as he was adopted. We occasionally visited his adoptive mother, who we called Auntie Brenda. She always gave me a shilling when it was time to go home, which was a lot of money in those days. Mum's mother died aged 56 when I was a baby, so I don't remember her at all. Mum's dad died when I was 7. I can remember some things about him. He lived in Sherborne Street, Ladywood. We either walked to his house or sometimes caught a bus. I remember his eyes lighting up when we got to his house, as he loved it when us grandchildren visited him. He would send me to the local shops to run errands for him, usually to buy sweets, if they were available. He always seemed really old to me, but in fact he was only 61 when he died in 1945. I attended St Barnabas Church of England Primary School from around 1943 to 1949. The school was located in Ryland Street, which is off Broad Street and quite close to Five Ways. Every morning before she went to work, my mum would walk with my younger brother and I from our house on Sutton Street to drop us off at my grandfather's house in Sherborne Street. When it was time for us to go to school, my Auntie Ada or Uncle Stan, who lived with Grandad, would walk with us to the school. It was only a 5-minute walk, as Sherborne Street runs parallel to Ryland Street. I don't really remember much about primary school, but I have a class photograph taken there around 1946. It shows my class dressed in a variety of odd clothing. None of us wore a uniform. It was only the posh schools that did this. I also have a copy of my school report written in January 1950 when I was 11 years old and just about to leave to go to secondary school. My teacher, Miss Jones, described me as keen and intelligent and stated that I should do well. The school head teacher, Mr. Stanley Wess, also wrote on my report and said I was a pleasant, sociable girl of good ability and should do well at St Thomas's. I got good marks in many of my subjects, including English, mathematics and reading, but only a B for scripture, now known as religious education, and PT, now known as sports. In September 1950, I moved to St Thomas's Secondary School, which was located on the corner of Bath Row and Granville Street in Birmingham. The ruins of St Thomas's Church, bombed during World War II, can still be seen on Bath Row, but I believe the school was demolished in 1967. The school was only a short walk from our house in Sutton Street, so my brother and I would walk there together every morning. I enjoyed my school days, but I can't say I was ever very academic. The only ambition I had was to leave school and get a well-paid job so I could afford nice clothes and give some money to Mom and Dad to help out with the bills. I did well at English and reading. My teacher got me to sit with pupils whose reading ability was poor so I could help them out. One of my favourite subjects was cookery. I made my own cookery apron in my school needlework class, and my mum bought me a wicker basket to carry the recipe ingredients to school. I was so proud of it. I remember making a wonderful pork pie in cookery class one day, and this was enjoyed by the whole family when I got home that evening. I didn't really enjoy sport, and I hated swimming as I'm afraid of water. We used the swimming pool at Monument Road, located past Five Ways and just off the Hagley Road. Eventually, I was excused from visiting the pool and was allowed to stay at school and do something else. I still can't swim, and I hate water to this day. My favourite teacher at school was Mr. Burt. I'll always remember how he encouraged us to do well at school, and he was very kind to us. Not all teachers were like this. Some could be really mean. This included our headmaster, Mr. Bate Jones. I really didn't like him at all. Each pupil had to take it in turns to sit outside his office for a whole day and run his errands. I remember when it was my turn to do this. It coincided with the water supply at my house being cut off, and I couldn't have a wash before I went to school. I was really worried that he would think I was dirty and smelly. Many of my friends ate lunches provided by the school. They cost 6p per day. However, I'm a fussy person with food and didn't like what was provided. So I would either walk home for a lunch of tea and toast or use my 6p to buy fish and chips at the local chippy. At lunchtime and during tea break, my friends and I would play games in the playground, like rounders and tag. The teachers also taught us to dance, an activity I absolutely loved when I was old enough to go to dance halls with my friends. After school, I was a member of the Brownies, which met on the school premises. However, when I was old enough to join the Girl Guides, I decided against it, as I was embarrassed that my mum and dad couldn't afford to buy me a uniform. My best friend at school was Joyce Lewis. Joyce and I eventually had a falling out, as she thought I tried to steal her boyfriend. In fact, I don't think he really liked her that much. I also went around with a larger group of kids after school. We had no money to spend, so we would just go walking and muck around in what we referred to as the country lanes. In reality, these were just tree-lined streets of big houses in posh suburbs such as Edgbaston. My boyfriend at school was Arthur Shooter. I remember he bought me a lovely cardigan for my 15th birthday. Everyone at my school left when they were about to turn 15. I don't recall anyone going on to do any further education. They all went straight into a job. I left school in July 1953. I was still 14. I started work as soon as I reached the age of 15 the following month. Sadly, I didn't really keep in touch with anyone with whom I went to school. This was recorded by Anne Piper's daughter, Anne Wright Jr. Thanks, Jocelyn. Bye.
Today, possible. He was not about it, that Phillips. He's a fucking weird title, man.